The voice echoed through the dimly lit hall, carrying the weight of a man who had endured countless conflicts. You won't hurt people without consequence, and they will hunt you if you're not careful. It doesn't matter where you hide or how prepared you think you are. Orina, the elder of the Iceland race, one of the oldest races in the Zez Alliance, spoke these words, letting them hang heavily in the air. The council convened in a large oval room carved from the rocks of the Death Moon, with representatives from 10 species gathered around. The meeting's topic? Authorized attacks on a human outpost in contested space. Many council members dismissed the elder's warning, viewing humanity as a young, impulsive race that had only recently joined interstellar society. They were noisy and chaotic compared to the ancient species present. Humans are nothing to fear, a counselor said. We've faced far worse species, with more advanced technology, larger armies, and brutal tactics. Yet, amidst the rising voices of condemnation, Talon's gaze drifted to the back of the room. There stood Hadric, the ruthless Commander Dukai, one of the galaxy's most feared men, smirking grimly. "You call it the beast, Talon," Hadric said, his powerful voice cutting through the din, "but I call it resilience." His words echoed, commanding the room's attention. "I fought with them at the siege of Sharos," he continued. "They had no advantage. They were outnumbered. Yet we lost." Talon raised an eyebrow. "And how did that happen?" Hadric's eyes narrowed. "We captured one of their commanders early on, expecting a ransom or negotiation for his release. But weeks passed without a word. Then, suddenly, 3 of our battleships were destroyed overnight, silently, precisely, and they took back their commander. They didn't need to say a word, but their message was clear." A tense silence settled over the council. Even Talon, usually calm and assured, seemed unnerved. Seated at the head of the table, Evan, the council president and leader of the Salinari, known for their neutrality and wisdom, kept his long, sharp fingers folded. His calm and steady voice broke the silence. "General Hadric, we understand your concerns, but we must weigh them against the potential gains. The human colony is remote, poorly defended, and strategically crucial, with resources we cannot ignore." Hadric shook his head, his expression grim. "You underestimate them. They don't fight like us. They don't know when to give up. And, above all, they don't forget." Ravano, a fiery counselor with crimson skin, laughed dismissively. Known for their raids and brutal tactics, the Ravano were feared across the stars. "We're the predators here, not them," Ravano sneered. "Humans may be cunning, but they're still just another race to conquer. We'll crush them like any other." Hadric's gaze hardened. "Humans are not like other races. Kill one, and another will come after you. They won't stop. You may think you're the hunter, but with them, you'll find yourself the hunted." Evan raised his hands, trying to quell the rising tension. "We understand your point, General Hadric, but we cannot base our decision on fear alone." Hadric sighed, returning to his seat, knowing his warning would go unheard. Greed and ambition had clouded the others' judgment. The counselors voted, and one by one, they sided with Talon and Ravano, approving the attack on the human outpost. Far from the council's gaze, on the edges of known space, a human outpost quietly scanned the stars. It was a remote that in the vast galactic sphere, serving as a communications and logistics hub, monitoring trade routes and supply lines. Inside, Darius, the outpost commander, sipped his cold coffee, muttering to himself, "Just another quiet night." Sergeant Myra Holt, his second-in-command, offered him a fresh cup, smiling. "Looks like we're in for a calm shift." But as if on cue, an alert flashed across the monitor. Darius frowned, leaning forward to check the readings. "Hold on, we have company." Myra, sensing the urgency, activated the intercom, instructing everyone to prepare. The outpost's lights dimmed as they readied for contact. Though the base's defenses were minimal, it held a secret weapon. Sentinel-class drones designed to respond rapidly to threats. The alien ships moved closer, circling the outpost. Their formation seemed cocky, overconfident. "They think this will be easy," Myra murmured, watching the display. "How wrong they are," Darius replied grimly. He issued commands to activate the Sentinels, and the drones sprang to life, intercepting the plasma bolts fired by the incoming ships. The battle had begun, but to Darius, this was more than survival. It was a message to the galaxy, the very warning Hadric had tried to impress upon the Council. Humanity would not be taken lightly. As the alien ships closed in, Darius barked orders over the loudspeaker, ready for battle. The station's defenses roared to life, guns swiveling into position, shields powering up, and red alert lights flashing across the base. The crew, well trained for this moment, took up their positions with steely resolve. The alien ships, undeterred, continued their advance, believing they held the advantage. Darius watched the radar, timing their approach. "Hold! Let them get closer," he muttered, allowing the attackers to believe they were unprepared. When the ships entered range, Darius issued the command. The station erupted in a blaze of plasma fire, catching the invaders off guard. 2 enemy vessels exploded into fragments, their remains scattered across the void. "2 down," Myra called out with satisfaction. Darius nodded, his gaze still fixed on the monitor as the remaining ships adjusted, regrouping for another assault. These aliens had not anticipated such a strong defense, especially from a base. They thought inconsequential. 3 left, Voss mumbled, seeing the red dots on the radar as the attackers reassembled and switched tactics. Holt began spreading instructions around the station, ensuring that each defense tower was fully functioning and shields were intact. "Now, they'll be more careful," she said, noting the attackers' tactical movements. Voss nodded. "Let's see if they are quick to learn." The Assassins began experimenting with new tactics, spreading out and attempting to outflank the station defenses. Their ships were swift, but the humans, with their automated response technology and tactical coordination, were even faster. Your hands sped over the panel, changing targeting systems and redirecting energy to shields. Every hostile move seemed premeditated. The station published another sequence of pictures. Another ship was severely damaged, with its fuselage shattering in a ball of flames that lit up the battlefield. The crew's brief applause did not deter Voss, who remained calm. Their changing focus, Holt explained, his gaze locked on the radar. "They're trying to attack our engines. That means they intend to disable us," Voss said with a faint smirk. "Maybe they intend to invade us later." "Try it," Holt responded boldly. The 2 remaining ships increased their attacks, but they were noticeably more desperate, firing haphazardly as they moved fast about the station, hoping to find an opening. Voss kept control, refusing to let the situation go out of his hands. He had prepared for this by studying. Every battle tactic and the right answers to similar scenarios are getting disorganized, Hull remarked, her gaze fixated on the attackers' erratic movements. "They're losing control," Voss acknowledged, calibrating the targeting system for the final time, and as if on cue, one of the enemy ships committed a deadly error. She got too close to the back of the station, where the big guns were stationed, and with a single accurate shot, the ship shattered into floating bits. "There's only one left," Hull remarked, smiling triumphantly. The final hostile ship paused its course, alternating between attacking and withdrawing. The alien pilot appeared to recognize his mistake. The ship then turned and started its departure, racing away from the station. "They're running away," Holt said, still in shock. "Not for long," Voss said, unleashing the station's long-range armaments. The group remained silent as Voss adjusted his sights. He waited for the right moment, watching the hostile ship accelerate more and more. He quickly pressed the trigger. A tremendous explosion illuminated space, and the last ship vanished into ruins. The audience was filled with yells and congratulations, but Voss remained silent. He knew it wasn't the end. That was just a warning. He remarked, moving from his chair to observe the wreckage floating outside. "They will come back, and next time it won't just be a handful of invaders." Holt nodded, aware of the gravity of the situation. The fight was won, but the war had only begun deep in the cosmos, far from the human outpost. The Zeely Coalition Council was agitated by Hardrick or experienced General T. Darius sat still as news of the unsuccessful onslaught spread. His attitude was grim resignation, and he observed the other council members with narrowed eyes, feeling the wave of surprise and uncertainty that washed over the room. How was a small human station able to destroy an entire attack? Fleet shouted Tan Yen, strategist, in shock. His bluish skin reflected the dim light in the room as he sought to figure out what had happened. They reacted stronger than we expected. He grumbled. Ratch is the imposing leader of the Ralph, a race notorious for its ferocity and looting. He was still in shock. His normally hey voice seemed more cautious. That should be a simple mission, Vaughn. The council, president, and Swari leader stayed silent for a minute to digest the information his species was recognized for its neutrality and intelligence. And at the time, his unwavering expression concealed the complicated thoughts racing through his head. He finally spoke, his tone calm and crisp. How was that possible? He looked at Hadrick, looking for an explanation that would help him put things into perspective. Hedry, who had been silent until then, tightened his fist beneath the table. He had warned of humans' tenacity and their ability to battle till the last man. He realized that underestimating humanity had been a catastrophic mistake, but there was nothing he could do to prevent what was about to happen. I warned you that humans do not fight. Like other races, HRI, remarked, his voice hard and heavy. With the weight of what was about to happen, you underestimated their resolve. They are not a species that is easily taken down. They fight until every one of their own is avenged, and now that we have provoked them, they will come after us. Torin crossed his arms, still hesitant to believe what Hadrick was saying. Do you suggest that we should fear them, that we should retreat? Hirai rose, came from the table. His eyes darkened with intent. I'm not suggesting that we fear humans, but rather that we respect them, because once we start this war with them, they won't stop until it ends, and when that happens, it won't just be a matter of losing 1 or 2 outposts. They will bring everything they have against us. The chamber became silent. Hiri's remarks rang throughout the room, and the other members exchanged glances, suddenly realizing their mistake. Rayak, usually the most bold, shook his head in disgust, attempting to retain his pompous demeanor. These humans are not invincible. We have faced much more powerful species. We can overcome them. Hadrick did not hesitate to answer. You don't understand at all. This isn't about brute strength or numbers. It's about the way they fight. They are tireless. Every human life lost becomes fuel for their revenge. You provoke them, and now you will have to deal with the consequences. Fron pondered in silence, knowing that the Zith Coalition had fought formidable foes in the past, but something in HR's tone made him pause. This was not a simple setback. It was a foreshadowing of something bigger, something that could easily spiral out of hand. We experienced a hiccup, Vaughn explained, gracefully extending his hand to quiet the audience. But this should not define our plan. We need to examine the issue and decide how to proceed. Hadrick groaned, understanding that his warnings had largely been ignored. He knew what was coming, and that the humans' next strike would not be a simple reprisal, but the beginning of a cosmic conflict. You have aroused an enemy. You do not know. Rick replied, his tone gloomy, and when they arrive, it will be more than a few ships. It will be their entire army, and they will not stop until they have achieved complete victory or have been killed. Torin tried to mask his fear, but the truth was tough to deny. So you think we can't win? Adric confronted the strategist. I believe that if we do not change our way of thinking, you will see what it is like to be the hunted, and when it happens, it will be too late to correct your error. The Count was confronted with a peril. It had never encountered before human resiliency. The fate of the galaxy was hanging by a thread, and every decision made from that point forward would have unforeseeable consequences. Then let them come, he growled, his voice ringing through the tension-filled room, and he stood up firmly as the chamber became silent. Hardrick looked at Renek for a minute. His gaze was gloomy and calculated. You won't be ready, he muttered, shaking his head. You're thinking like everyone else who underestimated humans. But they did not think like us before anybody could react. An urgent alarm cut off the talk Vaughn touched, a button on his console, and an image showed on the chamber. Screens. Silence fell heavy as the sight unfolded, with many human ships arriving swiftly. "They're already here," he murmured, startling Vaughn outside the blackness of space. Above, the Coalition Central System was now filled with human spacecraft, advancing with deadly precision. They had come to revenge on their fallen, not to negotiate or ask for terms on board the Tempest. Captain Daniel remained standing on the bridge, his gaze riveted on the screen in front of him. The alien fleet was huge, but he wasn't there to conquer. "I was there to send a message status report." Daniel remarked, his tone steady. Reynolds, his second-in-command, swiftly analyzed the data. "Every ship is in place in solid formation. They are starting to mobilize the fleet." Daniel nodded. "Prepare strike teams." Reynolds paused for a time. "Sir, are you certain about this?" "They have the numbers." Daniel cut him off. "They attacked first. Let's end now. No mercy, no hesitation." Reynolds swallowed hard and communicated the orders across the human fleet. Strike teams prepared. Everyone understood what was at stake. They had heard the stories, the legends about how humanity reacted when provoked. Now it was their turn to become part of those legends. While the alien ships attempted to form a line of defense, the human fleet moved with surgical precision. Hardrick remained silent. His expression tore as the advisors around him worried. How is this possible? Trevor gasped in surprise as he witnessed the explosions spreading over the Coalition fleet. The human fleet advanced mercilessly. "They are ugly." He smashed his fist on the table. Visibly irritated and in disbelief, they're only humans. He exclaimed, "They are coming to kill." "You HRI," stated his voice hard and stern, "and you did not listen. You assumed it was about guns or ships. However, it all comes down to willpower when they commit to a fight. They don't stop until it's over outside the Coalition flagship." The last line of defense was being attacked. It was massive, loaded with strong armaments and the pride of the fleet, but even that would not be enough to stop what was coming. Daniel, who was already Tempest, watched the enemy ship approach on the main screen. The alien flagship seemed enormous, like a fortress in space, but he was unimpressed. "Bring them close." She said, "I want to send a clear message." A Tempest positioned itself, surrounded by other human ships. The fleet had broken past enemy lines and was now prepared to strike the last blow and fire all weapons. Daniel said his voice was still calm as before. Tempest weapons erupted in rage, unleashing beams of energy that sliced through space and struck the Coalition flagship, causing devastating explosions to rip through the hull and destroy her from inside the control room. Trevik watched in horror as his flagship was destroyed. His words were barely audible. "How is that possible?" Fry stood steady beside him, her gaze severe and unsurprising. "You didn't listen," he murmured. "You aroused an adversary. You should not have provoked now that you're paying the price." The impact of the defeat was fast and devastating. The humans passed as a figure through the defense ships and came face to face with the Council's main ship, which was just what they needed to destroy the Galactic Coalition's primary brain. He said status report in a hushed voice. Reynolds took a step forward, his face pallid, but determined the alien fleet had been entirely destroyed. "There is no serious resistance remaining." Daniel nodded good. "Prepare a broadcast." Reynolds paused, to whom Sir Daniel turned to face him. His voice hardened for the entire Coalition. The signal echoed throughout the cosmos, sending a simple but plain warning. Any species that attempted to challenge humanity would pay severely. The Alliance had made its move, and it was now in ruins in the Council chamber. Hadrick gazed at Trock and the other members who fought in vain to rescue what was left of their dignity. Hardrick knew it was too late. The message had already been given, and the galaxy would never forget it. "You don't kill humans," Hardrick mumbled to himself quietly, "because if you do, they'll find you, and when they do, you'll have nowhere to hide outside." In the immense expanse of space, the human fleet was beginning to retreat. His goal was complete. They had demonstrated to the universe that humanity was more than simply another species. They were to be feared, ready to explore the unknown. Subscribe now and dive into the best. Sci-fi stories. Hit the notification bell and journey to new worlds with us.